Good afternoon. Hi, everyone. Welcome. My name is Pauline, and I'm a children's librarian for San Francisco Public Library. Wherever you're tuning in from, I'm so happy you're here with us. Go ahead and pop in the chat where you're tuning in from. We love knowing where our audiences are from. We'll get started right at 2 o'clock. Sherman Elementary. Oh, wonderful. Hi, room 208. Oh, okay. Soon to be hello, room 208. I am saying hello from the Richmond district myself in San Francisco. Hello from Santa Cruz. All right. Ashland, Oregon. All right. Thank you for being at Oakland. Hi from Mariposa. Nice to see folks. You're in for a treat. This is a wonderful program. You are so in for a treat. We'll give it another minute. People are showing up. Room 208. Hello. All right. I think we're going to get started. Here we go. Good afternoon. Hi. Hi, everyone. Welcome. My name is Pauline, and I'm a children's librarian for the San Francisco Public Library. Usually I'm at the Richmond branch. Some of you might know me. We are so happy you are here with us to celebrate Black History Month for youth and families in a Steelpan performance with Fiona Solomon. This is part of our More Than a Month program series in which we celebrate Black history, culture, and heritage. This celebration is titled More Than a Month in an effort to emphasize that reflection, open listening and dialogue, interdisciplinary education, and shared advocacy in our communities happens not only during Black History Month, but all year round. Thank you for joining us to continue understanding, respecting, and celebrating Black history and culture in San Francisco and beyond. Check out the More Than a Month webpage of San Francisco Public Library to see our upcoming events. Check out curated book lists and more. But before we start, a huge thanks to the Friends of the SFPL for their generous support of this special series. We can't do this without them. We can't do many programs without them. So without further ado, please help me in welcoming Fiona Solomon. Fiona is a former teacher and musician, currently residing in Washington, D.C. Born in Guyana, South America, into a musical family, Miss Solomon started playing the steelpan at the age of 5. Can you imagine? And has performed for audiences of all ages on stages around the country. Her father, Phil Solomon, who makes the instruments, is the inventor of the modern steel pan and started the first steel pan manufacturing company in the US. And on a personal note, I have to say, I had Fiona come to the Richmond branch to perform, and it was magnificent. I am not kidding when I say you are in for a treat. Take it away, Fiona.
Thank you so much, Pauline, for that great introduction. I'm very excited to be doing this performance virtually for the library, one that I used to do actually live because I lived in San Francisco. So it's been an amazing honor and pleasure to be invited back again to perform virtually for everyone. This is one of my first virtual concerts, and it is classical steel pan. There's just a few things that I want to say before we get started. I will introduce each piece, and at the end, we will have a Q&A. The most important thing to know, if you don't know anything about the steel pan, or you've never seen a steel pan or even heard of the instrument before, the most important fact to know is that the steel pan was invented to play classical music. So a lot of people ask, what notes does the instrument have? What is the instrument made out of? And what type of music can it play? So for this performance, I chose some pretty recognizable classical pieces that were written for piano. And a couple of things I want to mention about each piece before I play them, so you have an idea of where the music is coming from and what it is you're actually hearing. So the first piece I'm going to play is Minuet in G. It was originally thought to be written by Bach, but the minuet is actually written by Christian Petzold. And so you should recognize this piece. I'll be playing the traditional piano version. The next piece I'll be playing is a piece by Chopin, most famously called the Minute Waltz, but very few versions you will find of this popular piano piece has ever been played under a minute. So it's a very fast piece, and part of what makes this piece difficult is that you'll notice two different time changes in this piece. So there's a portion that is very quick and fast, and a portion that is slow and sort of lethargic, and then it kind of comes back into a really quick, almost waltz. So it's in 3/4 time. Now we'll move on to the third piece, which is a piece by Bach. This is a two-part invention, and Bach has been known to play two-part and three-part inventions. And traditionally what that means is you will have one hand covering the bass or the lower notes, and you will have another hand covering the higher or the tenor notes. Now, because I'm playing just one instrument, you might notice that there are some pauses, or maybe the bass line of the invention is omitted. And that is because, you know, a lot of these pieces, even though they're made for piano, they are made to sound as if there are multiple instruments playing. And in the Steelpan, the instruments are in voices. The one I am playing is called the tenor Steelpan. It is the highest voice of the Steelpan family. And it is meant to play all of the highest notes, in a piano piece. So one thing to note about these songs is that they've all been transposed to play on the steel pan. So what that means is that the elements of the song that have the highest notes that are tenor, that are made for this voice, the steel pan voice, that is the part that I'm going to be playing. So that's the part that you're hearing. So this was a little unplanned for what we had for this program, but I'm seeing a lot of hands going up in the chat. So we're at 62 and then 3 in the Q&A. So just checking in with Pauline or the SF library to see if you want to pause here for questions, and then I can play the last piece towards the end. How does that sound?
Yeah, I think we can do that.
Okay. I don't want it to get too crazy here. Don't want to get to 100 before we start taking questions, or, you know, in the chat just to see what people are talking about since I can't see it. So I'll jump in here. We can take a little bit of a pause, and then I'll play the final piece, which is the longest piece, towards the end. How does that sound? I don't want to throw off the library tech team here.
I'm trying, I don't really see any questions.
Okay, none yet. All right.
There were a lot of where people are viewing from, Los Angeles, Seattle. I know I saw one from.
Okay.
Pauline, if you click on the Q&A button at the bottom, you'll be able to.
Yes,
that's okay. You'll be able to see those there.
Okay. So Amber says, let's see, I've played Steelpan with the group, and our pans have the letters of the notes written on them. I noticed that the notes that are next to each other on a piano are usually not next to each other on a steel pan. For example, A might be on the other side of the pan from B. Do you know why this is? And how do you learn to find the notes when they aren't written on the pan?
Oh, perfect. So Amber, that is a really great question, and a very popular question for this instrument. So like I mentioned at the beginning of this program, the steel pan was invented to play classical music. And so you might wonder, why aren't the notes next to each other like they are on a piano, where you would go through the entire scale from C, D, E, F, G, and then you would have your sharps and flats as the black keys above your natural keys. Well, the first reason that the notes are not next to each other is because when the first creators of the instrument started making the instrument, they couldn't get the notes to stop ringing when you played one and tried to play another. So the steel pan is just one surface, unlike the piano, which has multiple strings. So if you hit one note on the piano, then all the other, on the steel pan, all the other notes would start ringing as well. So the creators of the instrument, young kids in the Caribbean, my father included, they didn't know anything about resonance. They didn't know anything about tone. They didn't know that there was a frequency to the note C and the note D. And so they tried their best to put all of the notes in the similar order as a piano, but it just would resonate too much, and you couldn't get any clarity in the note. One thing they started to do is they started to create huge spaces in the steel pan. So there are 12 notes in the scale, but instead of having all 12 on one drum, they would break the notes into different drums. Sometimes, even as the very first iteration of the steel pan, it would just be one note per drum, per can, because they just couldn't figure out how to get the notes from resonating together once you played one. So one of the reasons my father is the inventor of the modern steel pan is that as he started to get older, he realized that there could be a method to putting all of the notes together where they wouldn't resonate, or what they say called bleed together when you played one or the other. And that theory is based on the circle of fifths, or the cycle of fifths. So if you play music, or you are familiar with what that means, it basically means on a piano you have a C, which is your center note, let's say. Every fifth note of that major C scale is next to each other in a steel pan. So if you've seen a steel pan and you wonder, well, why do I have a C here and I don't have a D next to me? That is because if you start from C and you count 5, you have that note next to C. So a lot of people ask the question, yes, why aren't the notes, quote unquote, in order like you would get on a piano? And that reason is because one, they're designed in the circle of fifths. And two, it's because you're now able to have clarity in the note where one note isn't vibrating every time you hit another.
Great. We have questions about how does the steel pan work, and what are the other types of steel pans?
Sure. So Pauline, let me know if they can see me or not. I've just been talking without knowing, but I know they can see the other drums. So I know you can see the screen. These here are the mallets. So for those who asked how the steel pan works, it works like a percussion instrument, which means you hit it to make the sound. So these are my mallets. They're made from wood and they have rubber tips on the end. And every time I hit a section, I get to control how hard I hit it, which means it'll either be loud or soft, or how many times I hit it, which could be a single hit, or it could be what we call a roll. So I'll demonstrate that quickly for this question.
Wonderful. There is a question from Devin.
Yes.
And he asks, are the sides of the drums low notes and the bottom high notes? And in relation to that, there's another question. How do you remember where the notes are?
All very good questions. So yes, so because the steel pan is in a barrel, what you would consider the outside notes are the low notes, and the higher pitched notes are inside the instrument. But one thing to consider in relation to not just the steel pan, but all instruments, is that there are really only two instruments where you can see the notes you're playing. And that is a steel pan or a percussion instrument, let's say like a xylophone or bells or something like that. Percussive instruments and the piano. So when you play the violin, the guitar, the French horn, wind instruments, string instruments, you can't actually see the notes that you're creating. So with the steel pan, because it was invented by people who didn't really know music or weren't formally taught music, one trick to understanding how the instrument works is that every single note is a different size. So the low notes are larger, the high notes are smaller, but every single note from D to E to A to B to C, they're all different sizes. So that makes it incredibly easy to memorize where the notes are because they're all different. So it would be like memorizing the alphabet. A doesn't look like B, and B doesn't look like C, and C doesn't look like F, right? So anytime you're learning the instrument, what you're really learning is sort of this memorization of if you're going from a smaller note to a larger note. And what was the second question, Pauline? I tried to answer two at a time, but I don't know if I got the second
I think you did. I think you did.
How do I memorize?
Yes.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah, that's why I put them together, because they fit together well.
Yes, years and years of practice, I will say. So there are two elements of what I'm performing here that I think are important. One is that I choose to memorize the music, but you don't have to memorize the music when you play the steel pan. Memorizing where the instruments, where the notes are in the instrument, they take your mental memory and your physical memory. So people might look at what you're playing and think that it's very difficult, but I choose to memorize the music because I rely a lot on my physical memory, which means that I could basically close my eyes and play the steel pan because my body knows where the notes are. And I choose to play like that, but other people may not. Some people do read the music as they play, they sight read. And so there are multiple ways to do that, but it does take just a lot of practice, like any other instrument, to memorize the position of the notes and then to execute the music that you're playing.
I think we can do one more.
Okay.
And then we can hear the last wonderful piece you have. Christopher would like to know if you can share a little of the history of the instrument, and is it associated with a particular region of the world?
Oh, that is a perfectly asked question. Like I wrote it myself. Yes, so the steel pan was originally created in the British Caribbean, also known as the British West Indies. What is very unique about this instrument is that many countries, the children of those countries were creating the instrument at the same time, and people had no idea. It was starting in Aruba, in Barbados, in the Bahamas, and in Guyana, which is where I was born. My father is known as the inventor of the modern steel pan because he was one of those little kids who was just tapping cans, trying to get a note out of any small can that he could. As he grew older and he started to study music, he wanted to play a steel pan, but he didn't have one. He couldn't afford to buy one. He didn't even know where to buy one. So he decided to make a steel pan for the first time himself. And so once he started making the full-size steel pan after having played little cans as a kid, he then was able to incorporate a lot of music theory and the technical manufacturing process of the instrument, like what you would have for any modern day instrument. So yes, the instrument started with little kids in the English speaking Caribbean who really wanted to play music, but they couldn't afford instruments. And then as they got older, the cans got bigger, and they're now made out of 55-gallon steel barrels. And they're made in Pittsburgh now, which is quite interesting. So I think a very important part of Black history is that now the modern steel pan, even though it was invented in the British West Indies, is now being made in the USA.
That's really great. All right. So with that, I think we would love to hear you play some more.
Yes, we'll get to the last piece. that was the last piece by Mozart, the first part of actually a 3-part symphony.
That was so amazing and wonderful. Thank you so much. Oh, wow. Thank you, Fiona Solomon, for sharing your amazing skills with us. And thank you all for joining us today. If you have any artwork to share inspired by this program, we'd love to see your creations by tagging us at SFPL, or I'm sorry, at SF Public Library, and using the hashtag more than a month and hashtag Black History Month. Be sure to check our calendar for future virtual More Than a Month programs. Tomorrow we welcome Newbery Award-winning duo of the picture book, Last Stop on Market Street, Christian Robinson and Matt de la Peña. Today's workshop will be available. There was a question earlier, so I saw that, to replay any parts you need to view again on YouTube so your students can watch this. It will be available. Make sure to share it with your friends too. That's all for today, folks. Take good care of yourselves, stay safe, and we hope to see you at another library program really soon. Thank you. Bye.